I never expected a text could unravel. Years of trust, but that's exactly what happened that Tuesday evening. My name is Nathan, and I had been married to Lauren for 6 years. On the surface, our life seemed perfect. Friends admired our bond. Family thought we were inseparable, and strangers often commented on how lucky we were, but appearances are deceptive. The life we built together, the trust one gave unreservedly, was about to be shattered in ways I couldn't have anticipated. It began around 8 p.m. I was at home, finishing up some work when my phone buzzed. It was Lauren. Her message was casual, almost mundane. Working late. Tonight, don't wait up. Might crash at Alex's place if it gets too late. My stomach twisted. Alex was a colleague. She had mentioned before, always in passing. At first, I tried to rationalize. Perhaps she genuinely had a late project. Maybe she needed a ride home. Maybe I was overthinking. But instinct, that quiet voice that has never steered me wrong, screamed otherwise. Something was off. I grabbed my laptop and accessed the security feed from our office building. The cameras I had insisted on installing months ago. For peace of mind, I knew the footage would either confirm my fears or provide relief. I watched as the lobby filled and emptied, employees coming and going, the familiar buzz of office life. Then I saw her, Lauren, laughing and leaning close to Alex in a way no colleague ever should. The casual intimacy, the whispered jokes, the way she let her hand linger, it all screamed betrayal. I didn't storm in. I didn't confront. Rage, while tempting, would only cloud my judgment. Instead, I observed, I recorded clips, took screenshots, and cataloged timestamps. Every detail mattered. Every laugh, every glance, every subtle touch was evidence. By the time the night ended, I had undeniable proof. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't work stress. This was deliberate, and the consequences would be decisive. I knew exactly how to proceed. Lauren had crossed the line, one I couldn't ignore. Trust once broken in. Such a way demanded clarity, exposure, and action. I didn't want arguments or tears. I wanted results. I wanted her to face reality, and I wanted her, accomplice, to understand the gravity of his actions. That night, as the building emptied and the security feeds looped back to the beginning, I felt the first flicker of calm determination. She had underestimated me. That was her first mistake. By the time the clock struck midnight, I had a plan. I would confront, expose, and reclaim my life. Without hesitation, Lauren's lies, Alex's audacity, and the betrayal they shared would meet the consequences they could no longer avoid. And most importantly, I would no longer be anyone's pawn in a story of deception. Morning light felt heavy as I replayed the footage in my head. I sat at the kitchen table with a coffee gone cold, my phone buzzing with messages I ignored. There was no rush to explode. The point was not to react, but to be methodical. I had proof, timestamps, angles, and enough screenshots to make denial impossible. The evidence was undeniable, and now I had to decide how. to use it for a clean, definitive end. First, I copied everything to an external drive. Every clip, every still image, every moment that showed Lauren crossing a line. Then I made duplicates and hid them in places she would never think to look. This wasn't paranoia. It was preservation. People cover their tracks. I had to ensure the trail remained intact, even if she tried to delete it or spin a lie. Next, I thought about who needed to know. This betrayal wasn't just private. It had seeped into the professional world where reputations lived. Alex's job could be impacted, as could Lauren's. But this was not about punishment for its own sake. It was about making the truth visible so the web of excuses could no longer be woven. I drafted messages carefully, succinct, factual, devoid of accusation or hysteria. No temper, no theatrics, just plain evidence. I decided to confront Alex first, not to fight, not to humiliate, but to show him the consequences of playing with someone else's life. I drove to his building and waited until he left. When I stepped in front of him, the look on his face showed he thought this might be a mistake. I didn't allow that illusion to persist. I presented him with a folder, screenshots, video, clips, timestamps, no shouting, no threats, only the quiet weight of proof. His smirk vanished. He realized then that his choices had tangible fallout. He was not streetwise enough to see the damage he had invited. Later, I returned home and uploaded a single concise message to Lauren. The time, the evidence, and a statement that I would not tolerate lies. I didn't beg for an explanation. I didn't demand apologies. I gave her the facts and the choice she had already taken from me. She called, immediately, voice trembling, apologies spilling out. But the script she offered, confusion, regret, promises, felt thin against the solid proof on my drive. I called her parents next. They deserved to know. I laid out everything, calmly showing them the clips and timestamps. Their shock turned into a hollow silence. The betrayal extended beyond me into the family that trusted her. It was a betrayal of vows, of promises, and of the quiet faith others had placed in her. That evening, I prepared the next steps: legal counsel, drafts for separation, and the mental distance I knew I would need. I packed her a small bag and left it by the door. By the time Lauren returned that night, there would be no plea that could undo what had been done. The aftermath would be clean, definitive, and final. By the time night fell, I was ready to step out of the life that had been infiltrated by lies. The evidence, the confrontations, the calls to her parents, all of it had been handled with precision. I didn't need drama or public spectacle. Lauren's betrayal had been exposed, and the responsibility for the fallout rested entirely with her. I needed only to reclaim my space, my peace, and my life. I left the apartment quietly, leaving a note that was simple, factual, and devoid of emotion. It stated that the deception had been witnessed, the evidence gathered, and the next steps legally underway. There were no accusations, no pleas, just clarity as calm and sharp as a blade. Ghosting her wasn't cruelty. It was a boundary. I refused to engage with manipulation or half-hearted explanations. The silence was a shield protecting the life I still controlled. The next few days were a delicate balance of routine and reflection. I immersed myself in work, returning to the office with a renewed focus that left no room for distraction. Friends checked in, sensing something had shifted. I offered only a composed explanation. It's over. Things had to end. No need to elaborate. No need to invite sympathy. The betrayal had been personal, but the response was deliberate and controlled. I had chosen the path of decisive action rather than reactive anger. Months later, the legal processes were complete. Divorce papers filed, separation agreements finalized, and the final signatures in place. Lauren had tried to call, text, even plead through her parents, but I did not respond. Each attempt reminded me of how carefully she had planned her deception, and each unanswered call reinforced the principle she could no longer control me. Her choices had consequences, and mine absence was the clearest one of all. In the quiet aftermath, I reflected on what had been lost and what had been preserved. Trust had been shattered, and yes, but autonomy, dignity, and self-respect remained. Walking away, ghosting, and letting the truth speak for itself wasn't vindictive. It was liberation. Lauren and Alex had underestimated the consequences of betrayal. Their secret, their deception, had been illuminated in ways they could not undo. And through it all, I had preserved myself. Standing in my empty apartment, I realized the depth of what had occurred. Betrayal doesn't just wound, it teaches. It exposes weaknesses, tests patience, and ultimately forces choices. I had chosen to act with precision, to observe, to gather truth, and to step away. The lessons were harsh, but they were mine. Lauren's deception had ended one chapter of my life, but it had also forged the resilience and clarity that would guide the next. The cameras had revealed the lie. My actions had restored my freedom, and in leaving, I had reclaimed everything that truly mattered.